So I really just wanted to talk a little bit about nursing services and kind of point out again, I don't know necessarily if there's a lot of school nurses here or if there are other school support personnel that are here, but just pointing out that the difference between school nursing services and school health services. So school nursing services too, and I think that when I've talked with some individuals, they can be provided both in person and virtually. So school nursing services are the nursing services that are provided by the registered nurse. And then school health services are those services that are provided by others that aren't licensed nurses. And are done so that the student can access their education. So when school nurses think about how would they provide nursing services if the student was going to be virtual, what I have encouraged people to do is think of it from a nursing term standpoint, it's case management, because you're not going to be able to go out and provide the hands-on physical nursing care to student, but you're still going to be connecting with that parent, finding out if there's any new orders, how the student is handling their health condition in home, finding out, how the family is doing just from a emotional and mental health issue. So it's all those kind of case management issues that if a student is going to be virtual, you can still provide nursing services. If, though, the student for related services is going to have school health services, again, those would be services that are provided so that a student can access their education. So if they're being taught at home, they can access their education because they're at home without school health services. So again, as you're looking at and writing IEPs, and Iris had mentioned, that you're going to have contingency plans, and that your educational program IEP needs to be fluid. And so you may have a situation where best case scenarios, we're going to be doing some in-person instruction, and it may be, I heard in one of in my breakout room that in-person instruction is happening just a couple days a week for a shortened period of time. So that might be the in-person instruction. And then you're also going to have that contingency plan, like we've been telling school districts for all their students, have that contingency plan that if you need to go to virtual instruction because you have a lot of students who either maybe just in a small cohort, or the whole classroom, or maybe the whole building needs to go virtual instruction because you have an outbreak, or what you would consider an outbreak, or that you have too many staff members who are ill so that you can't provide in-person instruction, then you could go to virtual learning. So again, you need to have those contingency plans, make sure that you can provide both in-person and virtual. But if the student is not going to be in the building, they don't need to have the related services of school health services. Because again, thinking about it is that they have school health services such as a tube feeding, because when they're in the building, they need to be able to have a need for nutrition. And again, Iris had mentioned thinking about not necessarily what it from a disability, but what are the students' needs. So if a student's in the building and they have tube feeding, they have a need for nutrition, so we need to provide for that nutrition. But then if you are in that contingency plan, thinking about, well, if they're in virtual instruction, then they don't necessarily have that need for nutrition, because while they're home, the family would be providing that. And we'll talk a little bit next about activities of daily living. The other thing I forgot to mention, and forgot to look at my notes actually when I was talking about collaboration with parents and caregivers. I just want to kind of go back about that, and we did talk about this in our group too, is that again, looking at what is the least restrictive environment, and balancing the least restricted environment for students, for that particular student that you're writing the IEP for, and protecting the other students. And again, can be a particular concern if the student cannot wear a face covering or requires procedures that may aerosolize secretion. So again, staff can wear PPE, but there might be other students in that classroom who cannot wear PPE or cannot also tolerate face covering. So again, PPE is for staff to wear. It's not necessarily for students to wear. Someone had asked me, well, could a school district provide the higher level personal protective equipment for other students in the classroom? I guess that is a decision that you could be made. It's not something that is normally done, but you could provide a higher level of protection for students if you needed to. Again, lots of times the students who are particularly medically fragile also have classmates who are medically fragile, and oftentimes you have a whole classroom of students who cannot wear face coverings and cannot necessarily protect themselves. And I just wanted to mention that I also was previewing a video, so some of what DPI is using our CARES money funding is to create some resources for school districts, and one of them, well, there's two, and one is going to be a module that's specifically for schools on how school staff can use PPE and how you choose the correct level of PPE, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit. And the other thing that I wanted to just mention, as you're looking at the least restrictive environment and thinking, well, can we provide all the services that we need to provide? Iris and I were talking about this, and it might be something that you need to work with when you're talking with the parents. They would like you to, it's particularly when you're talking about it, like procedures such as suctioning, and that has been an issue that is creating a lot of angst for school districts, because CDC, DHS, therefore DPI is not recommending that suctioning be done in a school setting given COVID-19. But there are some measures that a school district could take that could make suctioning a little bit safer, not completely safe. Some of those might be is putting the student in a room by themselves, obviously when they do the procedure, but if they need to be suctioned every 5-6 times an hour, you're not necessarily going to be able to move the student to that room, so they might have to be in a room by themselves, and you might need to create a room that would be safe for that to be done, such as you need to get a better ventilation system. So as you think about some of these measures, Iris and I were talking about, that is that it may be you may get into a available for the family. So as you're hosting those meetings and talking about that and say, we will work towards that. It might be similar to a situation where a student, you have identified the need that they need speech and language services, but you don't have a speech and language therapist. And so it doesn't mean that the student doesn't have a need. Doesn't mean that you haven't recognized that need, just like you've recognized the need that the student needs to be sectioned while they're at school. But the fact is that you aren't able to provide that service right now. You're going to keep looking at that, like you're going to keep looking to hire a speech and language therapist, and as soon as you get one, you can implement the IEP fully. Same thing with COVID-19. All these measures, a school district might not be able to implement immediately. So again, as we talked about the various settings, you need to be flexible. You need to be thinking about, well, we could implement part of these measures and have the person be in person. Some of the measures we can't implement, so the student needs to be virtual instruction.